for the needs?
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question too. So first of all, I'll say that the staff at the foundation really, was extremely resilient. Obviously, they moved to the new model of remote working very quickly and very swiftly. On top of that, we had an emergency fund similar to what we had during Sandy. So even though our, grant allocation cycle, works on a cadence, that's prescribed, we are able to respond more rapidly in times like this. And so we did raise a fund very specifically to be able to push funding out to new organizations and existing organizations that perhaps had more of a strain on their resources within communities. So, as far as where it goes, on an ongoing basis, I would think that one of the opportunities that came out of the pandemic was that we're now able to reach people through this virtual medium that perhaps we didn't reach in the past. So people outside of New York, for example, who consider that New York is a really good place to start movements, to experiment, if you like to use that word, on different methods to bring about justice. And so New York is, as you know, a really good microcosm for many reasons to be part of that work. So we're able to reach out further, I would say, and I think that the importance of movement work and the importance of the work that we do around the expansion of democracy and the protection of democracy, frankly, we've sort of upped the ante on some of that. And so, for example, grantee partners that we fund that are looking to increase the participation of women in local politics and women of color in particular. That's become more of a priority for us. Environmental justice is becoming more of a priority for us as we see some of the impacts of climate change that have happened in this year, et cetera. So yeah, I think we're true to the mission, and the mission has been the same for the last 35 years, but I would say we're nimble and agile around some of these sort of more emerging areas that become more critical in the work.
Great.
So what is the foundation's approach when it comes to dismantling systems? And I'm thinking of racism as one system. Do you work in that space? Because if you are in fact working with women of color, that is an issue, a big issue for us. So how does the Women's Foundation address that?
Yeah. So I think first of all, there's a recognition about the interconnectedness, the intersectionality around these issues, right? Of poverty, of race, of ethnicity, of gender expression, et cetera. And so there's a recognition that these things are interconnected in our humanity. There's a recognition that we have to move towards not just thinking about rights, but thinking about justice, and justice involves a power shift and a power change and a more inclusive model in terms of who's at the table where power is shared. And so in particular, I would say the funding, our ability to partner with other foundations to raise funds that are targeted around, for example, justice. So we have a 7-year justice fund, an initiative to for example, help dismantle some aspects of the criminal justice system. You'll be familiar with our support for the closing of Rikers as an example of that. And so the system of criminal justice and incarceration obviously needs some attention as it relates to to Rikers and the treatment of individuals there. And so we've raised a fund specifically focused on that. We have another fund. It was the first of its kind in the country for young women of color. And so again, the recognition that there needs to be investment in young women of color, and that is an investment worth making over the longer term. Again, these are things where the foundation is sort of shining a light into what I'll call this interconnectedness, this intersectionality of different aspects where systemic injustice has happened and continues to. And part of our work is direct, funding to community organizations that help survivors and victims of such injustices. But we're also now continuing to do more advocacy work and movement building work that goes beyond the grantee partners that we fund.
Phyllis, is there something you'd like to add?
Well, as I'm listening to you and I'm thinking about what a wonderful example you are, and thinking about asking myself, how did you get into this work? And wondering if the foundation works with young people, young women like yourself that aren't really, they're on the road. Is there a way that the foundation works with them to help them to chart ways into the type of work that you're doing?
Thank you for that. That's a great question too. So I'll answer your question about how did I come to this work. I came because a woman, a fellow mother at the school where my children go, was on the board, and she introduced me. But and that was sort of the physical reason how I showed up. The emotional connection and the way that I showed up is, look, I myself am an immigrant, a woman. I'm a survivor of violence in my childhood. I came to the foundation thinking, look, I get it, and then I realized, really, actually, I don't. I'm not a woman of color. I didn't grow up in America. I'm not coming from a place of understanding some of the history of racism in America, for example. And so I realized I had a lot to learn. I had, been successful in my career, and I had a lot to give, I felt, in terms of leadership and the ability to raise, to raise funds. But I had to go on a personal journey that I'm sure many people had to go on this year in America, this past 24 months. That helps you to, I guess, put into perspective the injustices that are there, based on various expressions of identity that we have as individuals. But more to the point, the urgency and the importance of getting involved and being active in making change happen. And so, we absolutely do work with young people through some of the grantee partners, who are funding young women. And women entrepreneurs, for example, we fund organizations that are about creating entrepreneurial, supporting entrepreneurial efforts for women. We fund young women, obviously, who are victims of the criminal justice system, or survivors of that, or various injustices that have happened there. Women who are survivors of domestic violence, young women who are immigrant. And for example, we have an organization that supports domestic workers and their rights, for example. Many of those women are young women. And then, we do seek, and I do personally seek, to bring more women of means, and access, and women who have platforms to do fundraising to the organization, because that's going to be, really important too. We rely obviously on our donor communities, and bringing more people into that space is really important to us. So we've been doing a better job of that broader outreach, I'll call it.
Talk to us about the process of the Women's Foundation, because I think it's different from other foundations.
Yeah, it is, and I mentioned to you, we're relying on this collective generosity of smaller gifts. And so if you looked at and you can, right, because we're a public foundation, the sort of the size of the gifts that we've been given, I think we definitely need to cultivate, some of the larger donors. We definitely appreciate, obviously, partnering with some of the larger foundations that partner with us too. On the corporate side as well, I would say, we support very small organizations that you can't sort of go volunteer in. And so you couldn't bring the whole of a particular Fortune 500 company to, volunteer at the foundation, and therefore, that company writes a check to the foundation. It kind of doesn't work that way. So we really rely on people being aligned to the mission and to the work. And so it is a little harder for us. I mean, some of these larger foundations, of course, have a lot of power at the tables, physically and metaphorically speaking. And so, people can, to your point, use the access to bring clients to their, to the cause, to, bring, other people that they're connected to in their social circles. I think we have to work a little harder for smaller gifts that we then combine. But we're focused on that for sure. We're focused on again, the collective power of having a very inclusive approach to welcoming everybody to the foundation that can identify with the mission and with the work.
So talk to us a little bit about the process, because there will be those women who are listening to this, who are running organizations. I had a friend yesterday talk to me about working in a nonprofit and how she was doing an HR function, but if she had to paint the bathroom, she painted the bathroom. Okay,
that's right.
So,
yeah,
because it can get really nitty gritty. So talk to us about the process for leveraging funds from the New York Women's Foundation.
Yeah. Apply. Yeah. So like I said, we have a cadence of applications. We accept the applications. We look at obviously what the organization does, so we can check whether or not it fits with the mission. We definitely, like I said to you, really examine, okay, who is the leader? Who is the person that's running this organization? We look at what sort of capacity do they need to be able to be effective. We look at their proximity to other things that we fund in that community. So like I said, we cover all 5 boroughs. So we know the ground. We know who else is there. We're able to make connections between the work, new applicants that come to us and existing, grantee partners that we fund. So we look at that adjacency and alignment. And then, we have this participatory process that pulls people in from the community and previous grantee partners and so on to look at, how likely is it if we fund this organization that it will actually make a change? How transformational is this vision, this plan, this leader? And those are the things that are important to us.
And as we get closer to closing, I'd like you to talk to us about what you do in your day job.
Oh, me? Outside of the foundation?
Yes, outside of the foundation. Quite interesting.
Yeah. So I have 2 other full-time jobs. No, I have a full-time job at an advisory company. I work for EY, where I work on large technology transformation projects. So a lot of our clients are implementing at various different speeds and scale digital transformation strategies, where they're moving their technology to the cloud, and they're doing more partnership with startup technology companies and so on, and integrating them, and we help them to do that. So that's sort of job number 1. I also teach. I'm an adjunct professor at Fordham, and I teach the MBA class on innovation and change. So it's interesting, because you would think that would be more connected to my EY job, but it's about leadership and having an expansive view on leadership.
So what would you say your dream is, or what have you done that you're specifically proud of?
Yeah, for the foundation, I would say it's bringing more younger leaders to the work. So sort of living it yourself and then bringing others to it. And more to Desiree's point, like the more people that I can involve that will think about leadership in service, the better. Because what I've certainly learned is that there's so much that I learn in the philanthropic area that I apply to my corporate life. I mean, it's really about how to be a good leader and how to be inclusive in the way we think about the world, and how to be open and curious, and how to give service.
Excellent. And we speak about curiosity all the time, don't we, Phyllis? We talk about
Yes.
curiosity and inquiry. Everyone on this panel, that is one of our watchwords. Now, Toby, I have seen you nodding your head and smiling. Is there anything more you'd like to add?
What do you think the next movement is in terms of your supporting movement building?
Yeah, I think environmental justice is going to be a very big area. I think disability justice is an area that we've been leaning into more heavily as well. But I think environmental justice is where it's going to really be important that we're focused, because as we know, these marginalized communities are more likely to suffer, longer term impacts from climate change, and not be able to access some of the resources that they need to handle that. So I'm going to say that's going to be the area that will be emerging.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, this was a wonderful conversation, Grainne. Thank you so much for spending your evening with us here on Brooklyn Savvy. We hope to support the New York Women's Foundation, and we hope that you all will use Brooklyn Savvy as a platform for those groups that you would want to give a little lift to, a little heightened awareness.
Thank you, Tony. Would love to. Thank you so much. My pleasure.
And we will see you next time on Brooklyn Savvy.